I am a huge fan of chronograph watches, and it has little to do with the functionality and everything to do with the way they look. And here are two of my favorites that I have in hand: the SRQ 029 Panda from Seiko and the Zenith Chronomaster Sport. I'll be saving a future video on the Seiko SRQ 029 and why it is in relative terms among my favorite chronographs. Today's video is more about the Zenith Chronomaster Sport and how since 2021, its initial release, it remains to be the most interesting, beautiful chronograph watches to have hit the market, and why I have some really strong feelings towards this chronograph, even a bit of regret in letting it go. New for this year is Zenith's admission that they didn't get the bracelet clasp right upon initial release of this watch. The Zen clasp system allows for the central part of the clasp to open up and gives you that adjustment out, almost about a link and a little bit more for comfort on the wrist. The ADs have confirmed with me that they will charge $1,800 to order this clasp separately. Now this is on a watch that's already 16,600 Canadian dollars, which is a tall order for this watch. I had sticker shock back then when this watch was new on the market. Paying 10,500 Canadian dollars was a lot of money to me before taxes. Now I can't justify that 16,600 asking price from Zenith brand new. I have to ask you, are you team white dial or black dial? The internet's divided on this. I will say that I prefer the black dial, and that's what I went with. The silver and gray subdials appear more harmonious on the black dial. It's a cleaner look. However, if you were a fan of the white dial and the contrast it had in the subdials with that panda thematic, then I would understand your choice in choosing the white dial. I wasn't very impressed with the thin stamped steel clasp with the lack of an extension, very few micro adjustments to get good comfort on the wrist either, so off the bracelet went. Even though I liked how that bracelet looked on the watch, I opted for a Monstrap canvas strap that I experienced and enjoyed the watch for the entirety that I owned it. The 13.6mm case met with the 47mm lug-to-lug dimension, a short stubby case design with the lopped off lug ends meant that the watch really felt compact on my 6.5-inch wrist. It is among the most comfortable wearing column wheel chronographs to this date. I have not yet found a more comfortable chronograph in my opinion. This watch felt special to wear, as if it was an occasion every time I got it on the wrist. The most beguiling feature for me is that inky, deep, rich black dial, and it's evident in its reflectivity in the date window, where you can see in the leading edges it just catches light beautifully. And I know it's something that you'd come to appreciate right away, but when you look for it, it's there, and you can see that in the finer details. I love the brilliance of the rhodium-plated hands and subdial hands that have little painted red and black contrasting inlays into them for a higher legibility, and this watch needs it. There's a lot going on. Even the concentric circles in the subdial have a beautiful consistency to them, with each of the gaps perfectly distanced from each other. The indices have this black painted inlay that's texturized, which gives definition, height, a bit of legibility to the indices that is appreciated as there is a lot going on for the dial. Even the facets in the Zenith Star logo, with how you can see the height at which the star sits on the dial, is so fun to look at. If I have one area of improvement, it would have to be the pusher feel. Now, it isn't as clicky as a 7750 or even a Omega Speedmaster 1861. The pusher feel on those chronographs are just more positive. I felt that the pusher feel in the Chronomaster Sport was nice, but it was dulled, muted. It didn't have that clicky activation and engagement that I come to enjoy. That's just a matter of preference. The 1/10 second complication with the second chronograph seconds hand whizzing around is always a treat to look at, but in real practical life, when is it useful? When would a 1/10 of a second chronograph be useful in the real world anyway? You could look at it from the motorsport context, breaking down a lap time from 1 second into 10 segments for that precision measurement, or perhaps through cross-country skiing in the Winter Olympics. But if you're talking about swimming or other activities where they're measured 1/100th of a second, this isn't going to cut it. You also have a 1/10 of a second bezel as opposed to a tachymeter, so the motorsport application and usage to measure distance and time and speed relative to each other is just not really easy to do. Perhaps you're just one of those individuals that like to measure pour over extraction coffee over 1/10 of a second, but I think if you're doing that, you might be staring at your watch more than enjoying coffee, in my opinion. Jokes aside, it is a beautiful complication and fun to observe that seconds hand whizzing around the dial in a mad fashion. I like the black dial for the contrast of subdials that makes it easier to read. So from the right hand side you have your 1 hour totalizer, the 6 o'clock is your 60-second totalizer for the chronograph, and the silver subdial is your running seconds. There's a confusing duality with enjoying this watch daily, in my opinion. And in my experience of wearing it, I certainly felt it. The mid case is done in this black polish, highly reflective, mirror-like, distortion-free finishing, with delicate bevels done in the same type of treatment. The top of the lugs, the planes, are done in fine-grained finishing. It's a highly complex case that I don't think you would have a very easy time refinishing with your traditional Cape Cod or Scotch-Brite pad or fiberglass pen. This would have to go back to Zenith to restore that factory finishing. You shouldn't let that diminish your enjoyment of the watch. Life is short. Wear the watch, enjoy it in full. It is a treat, both visually and ergonomically, to have on the wrist. I want to point out another popular chronograph that I admire deeply and enjoyed wearing. It's the Heritage Chrono from Tudor. And in thickness, it is rather interesting to compare these two watches. Having a look from a side-to-side profile, the Tudor measures in at 13mm thick, but it has a recessed case back, cam-actuated chronograph movement, as opposed to the Zenith and its column wheel chronograph, which measures in at 13.6mm in thickness, so it's about 0.6mm thicker, and you can tell from the case back and taller bezel of the Zenith Chronomaster Sport that that is the case. However, visually, in the real world, nary is there a difference. And I think that's impressive on Zenith's part. It isn't all sunshine and rainbows with this watch. There are some negatives though, one of which is that bracelet, which has an awful stamped steel clasp with very minuscule amount of micro adjustments to get comfort on the wrist. The other is the movement and how simple and industrial it looks. I am a huge fan of having an exhibition caseback on a chronograph, but visually this just doesn't hit me in the face as much as I hoped and wished it would. Call me old school, but I would love the look of perlage on the bridges and maybe even a bit of Geneva striping to just give more visual appeal to the movement as you're staring at it and you're thinking, well, it does fit the theme of the watch and its industrial no-nonsense vibe, but it is lacking in that regard of visual excitement, in my opinion. Another negative, in my opinion, is the muted feeling of the pushers and the start-stop functionality. I was expecting a more satisfying thunk or click. You don't get that. You get kind of a softer detent down and then you get a muted click. I think some would like that. In my opinion, I'm used to the very clicky cam actuated chronographs that provide a positive feedback. That said, I still think this is among one of the best and most interesting chronographs on the market still to this day. And I appreciate you watching today. If you liked today's video, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.